Hello, all you tiny, beautiful people. My name is Finn, and welcome back to my big Spider-Man pitch, and welcome to Spider-Man Same Stitch, the end of the first trilogy, and the beginning of a new era of the character. So, let's get into it, shall we? To begin, if you haven't seen the first two parts, well, there's technically three, but two pitches for a film. They are in the same playlist as this. They are in the description, and they will be in a little index card thing in one of the corners. I don't know which one it'll be, but check those out first because it is a continuation of those. So let's begin. The film starts with Peter swinging around as Spider-Man as he talks to himself again about the importance of responsibility, the importance of being responsible but also accountable, and holding yourself accountable and being completely there with your responsibility and not just saying I'm responsible, but actually doing something about it. In the middle of this chase, the Shocker is seen robbing a place and getting out of town. And it seems like he's being a lot more defensive than typical. Instead of attacking people, he's hiding from them. Instead of being verbally assaultive towards people and trying to make jokes, he is getting the hell out of Dodge. So Peter stops him, and what happens is the Shocker says no. He says, I'm not going to jail, I'm not going to prison, I'm not going to... New York is not a place for me anymore. Goodbye. Peter is very confused and tries to stop Herman until Herman, all he has to say is, the goblin's in town. I've gotta go. Peter is very confused. He has no clue what that means. He has no clue the context of it. But considering the last two guys who had weird names, well, last three if you include Shocker, have done some damage. Vulture, Mysterio. Yeah, okay. So Peter is going to, for the right reasons, is going to be a little confused and is going to be almost scared. Because as fun as Spider-Man is, as interactive with the city as he is, as loved as he can be, it's not easy for him to do these things. It's not easy for him to do all of this. It's not easy for him to throw away his personal life to save people. And that scene will come to an end as we go to Oscorp, and we have a scene of Norman in his office alone. He's just sitting in his office with some green ambient light because, he's the Goblin. And he's sitting, and he's just tapping his finger on his desk. Hello, lovely boy. He's just tapping his finger on his desk as he stares at his computer. And then he smiles. He goes over to a big machine, and he takes a vial. Just one vial. It's green, and it doesn't have anything on it. And he looks at it, and he stares. He smiles again. And then we see him take it, put it into a needle, and then put that into his arm. But instead of him growing into a monster, instead of him smiling, instead of anything positive happening from it, he just faints. He faints and he hits the ground, and that's the end of it. Opening the next scene, in school, we've got Harry, we've got Gwen, and we've got Peter walking in the hallway, and they're talking about not Spider-Man stuff, because it would be really boring for that to be your entire life, wouldn't it? So instead, they talk about where they're going to go after high school. They talk about what jobs they want. They talk about what schools they want to go to. Peter begins the conversation talking about wanting to look into biophysics, wanting to get into biochemistry, and then specifically pointing out two people that he really wants to work with, in a Dr. Otto Octavius and a Dr. Curtis Connors. They are very, 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 very good scientists, and as far as Peter knows, very, 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 very good, reliable, responsible men. And there are people that he has looked up to. We've seen them on the posters of his walls in previous movies. and we've seen him write papers on auto for a class. But now, as school's coming to an end, he's getting the idea of where he wants to go, what he wants to do. Those are the two names he wants to work with, and that is the stuff he wants to do with his life. Maybe Spider-Man will get in the way of that. Maybe. Harry's confused. He doesn't really know what he wants to do, because he could, unlike others who have to work hard to get to where they want to be, Harry could very easily go to any school he wants. He could very easily work any job he wants. His dad is the second richest man on the planet. He could do anything he wants, and because of that, he doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know what he wants to do. He doesn't know who he wants to become. He doesn't know if he's going to go to school. He doesn't know. And Gwen starts talking about how she wants, with all her soul, she just wants to help. She wants a medical career, and she doesn't want to be a nurse. She wants to be a person who actually studies and creates the medicines that people need. She wants to be that person, and she's been working towards it forever. That's why she goes to Oscorp as an intern. That's why she works her ass off at school. She wants to do that. Her parents push her into law enforcement. Her friends let her do whatever she wants, and because of that, she's kind of latched on to Harry and Peter. I wonder if she's latched to Peter a little. But she is very passionate about that goal, and that will be important later. While they're conversating about this, Flash Thompson shows up, and they're thinking that Flash is going to bully someone. They're thinking he's going to hurt somebody, but instead he hugs Harry. He just hugs Harry for a sec, tells him he's sorry, and Harry's very confused until Flash talks about what he saw on the news, which is that Norman has gone missing. Harry's dad is gone. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody knows what he's doing. There's no reports of him getting on a plane or a helicopter or a bus or into one of his cars. Nothing. Nobody has any idea where he is. And because of this, Harry is distraught. Harry is lost. Harry doesn't know what to do, even more so than right beforehand. Which is a problem for Harry, but it's also a problem for the people around him. Flash Thompson, their bully for all of middle and high school, just comforted him. Gwen and Peter are beside Harry because that's their best friend. And they both have relationships with Norman separately as individuals in a way. And Peter has this almost fatherly relationship with Norman because of all of the years of Harry and Peter being so close. And then after Uncle Ben, Norman was there to help. So this scene doesn't end on a fun note. It ends with Harry running, just leaving. It ends with Harry running away from his friends, away from the school, and just going. And we don't see where he goes for a bit, but he needs time to be by himself. Spider-Man also takes a little bit of interest in the idea of Norman disappearing, and he thinks, well, Shocker was talking about that goblin guy. Maybe that goblin guy took Norman. Maybe that's what happened. If it's enough to scare this hardened criminal that I've seen kill people, it's got to be a big deal. And because of this, Peter goes looking around the city for anything, any clue, any discrepancy, just something to push him to find Norman. He's looking and he's looking and he's looking. He talks with the police department. They have no clue. He talks with journalists. He talks with the Bugle. He does all of this as Spider-Man, not Peter Parker, and he just can't figure it out. He takes out a large group of criminals. Like a full gang gets taken out in one swoop by him, and then he questions them. Who's the Goblin? Where's the Goblin? What is his plan? They don't know. Nobody knows who that is. Shocker knew, but nobody else does. And that is scary. Peter, as Spider-Man, says he needs to find Shocker. He asks the police station. He asks Captain Stacy specifically. They don't know where Shocker is. He ran away. They don't know where to. They don't think he's in the city, but they don't know for sure where he's at. Peter is not happy with that information. He's not happy with not knowing. And then we get a scene of Harry at Aunt May's house. He doesn't run home. He runs to Aunt May. And he talks with her. And we don't hear a whole lot of their conversation. But we do hear May telling Harry that it's okay. Telling Harry that they'll find him. Telling Harry that he will be okay. And then she, being the wise woman she is, expresses that she's aware that Harry is not only afraid of where his dad is, but that he's terrified of his future. He's terrified of being different. He's terrified of not knowing, and the fact that he's already lost without this dad thing. And those two will have a bit of a conversation about that. Obviously, they would have a better written, more deep conversation than what I just said, because I'm not a perfect writer. But they have this moment where she's almost a mother figure to Harry, the way that Norman has been a father figure to Peter. Which I think would be a nice change of pace, because we don't see Spider-Man's friends or anything really talk with Aunt May in, film for some reason. Spider-Verse does it a little bit, but not a lot. Anyways, next scene. Peter Parker, not Spider-Man, the high school journalist, gets on a bus, and he leaves New York for the first time in his life, and he goes to New Jersey. I know. It's bad. Me too. I also hate New Jersey. But Peter goes to New Jersey because he thinks that there's a chance it's where Shocker goes. He's wrong. There's no proof of Shocker. However, he does find the identification of Herman Schultz, the original criminal. He finds his ID, he finds a bag full of his stuff, including some money that Peter stares at for a minute, thinks about, and then takes to the police. But he realizes Herman, the southern guy, he wouldn't be up here, would he? So, Peter takes a short detour after talking with Aunt May on the phone, and then obviously he tells Harry and he tells Gwen he's going down to Louisiana. And then we hit Peter in Louisiana for a bit, looking for Herman Schultz. We get a scene of Spider-Man trying to swing through Louisiana and just face planting in some mud, getting stuck in a swamp. Kind of fun. I think that'd be cool. A cool, different look for what Spider-Man is and what Spider-Man does, and the area that we typically see him in. I think it could be fun. Just seeing him faceplant into a swamp, I think that could be fun. He looks and he finds Shocker in this little cabin in the middle of this swamp. He goes in, and Herman's not wearing his suit. He's not hurting in it. He's just in this little house, sat down. There's a fire in front of him, and he's just there. He's calm. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just sat. He's just there. Spider-Man webs his hands up to where he's kind of stuck in the chair, and Herman's confused, A, as to how Spider-Man found him, and B, as to what the hell he wants. Because it's obvious he's not trying to arrest him. There's no lights going off right now. There's no sounds. What's the goal? Peter explains what he wants. He explains why he's there, the whole Green Goblin thing. He's looking for this guy, and more importantly, he's looking for Norman Osborn. Shocker expresses that he doesn't give a fuck about Norman Osborn, and that guy can die. Because, Shocker having this suit is from Osborn, but that's also led to him having a harder life than he already had. It's led to him getting his ass beat. It's led to him almost dying, and it's led to him deconstructing his ideas and going back home. But Spider-Man doesn't exactly take that as his answer, and threatens Shocker, grabbing him by his collar, picking him up with the chair, slamming him into a wall, and screaming, Where's Osborn? Shocker gets very unhappy with being treated this way, but he can't do much without a suit, so he expresses the very little information he knows. The Goblin's in New York. That's all I can tell you. The Goblin is in New York. Couldn't tell you where Norman is. No one's seen the guy. I don't know. But New York City has a goblin problem. That's where that is. Go back to New York. He's not out here. Because he wouldn't be out here. And then that's about where it ends. And then as Peter is walking out of the door, the TV is on a newscast. Peter turns to look at it. Shocker also looks at it. And the Goblin is here. A man on a glider in a big purple cloak with green skin and abnormally sized, body. He's not, huge monster goblin, but he's 7 feet tall and lanky. He's not giant Hulk goblin. He's just lanky. But this big green dude in a purple cloak on a glider is flying around, specifically Midtown High. And as he is laughing and screaming, he starts blowing up helicopters. He blows up the newscast. And he blows up part of the school. And the first time we've seen something so big and so violent and so far from normal in this trilogy. Because the Vulture did damage to some outside property. Mysterio did damage to a bell tower, and Shocker had done damage to a bank and then a theater room. Goblin blows up helicopters. He blows up this, part of this football field. He blows up, a third of the school. It's damage. And it's the first time we've seen Mysterio die from Shocker, but in this situation, Goblin kills 2 kids. And he injures many, 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 many more. He kills 2 kids, he kills 2 helicopter pilots, and 3 people who were on the helicopters. And he kills 2 children. Goblin is not the same as Mysterio, and he's not the same as the Vulture. This guy's not misunderstood. This guy's not a bank robber. This guy's evil. And Peter, seeing this, freezes. He's not used to this. He's not used to this big a deal. He's not used to this much damage, and he's not used to this much loss. Peter doesn't know if he can handle this, because for the first time since becoming Spider-Man, the damages aren't small. They're not controllable. That bomb blew up a third of a high school. How is Peter supposed to handle that? How is Peter supposed to get rid of that bomb? How is Peter supposed to get away from that? How is he supposed to save those people? He doesn't know, and he's stuck. He's frozen, and he's lost. Herman doesn't like Spider-Man, and he sure as hell doesn't like New York. He doesn't like kids, he doesn't like cops, he doesn't like news, of course not. But even he takes a second, he takes his hat off, and puts it to his chest, because as much as he's a bank robber, and he killed Mysterio, another villain, but he doesn't believe in harming innocents. That's one of the things that we see from him throughout, is he doesn't hurt people. He's hurt Spider-Man, he's hurt Mysterio, and he's hurt cops. He has not hurt children, he has not hurt randoms, and he isn't okay with the damage he just saw. Peter turns and says, "Help me stop him." Herman says, "Fuck no, I would like to live, thank you very much." Peter doesn't say anything to him. We just get angry Spider-Man stare before Peter leaves, and then we go back to New York. We're now, the camera shifts into his TV and comes out as one of the cameramen who are watching everything crumble. We see children running from the building, we see children hiding, we see teachers, we see cops, we see firemen, we see everything that New York has running. And of the people dead, most of which there's not a whole lot left. The people that were in helicopters are charred. They crashed into the ground, and there's not a whole lot left. One of the people who died in the building was smashed entirely, and their body is still there, but it's kind of messed up. And then another was in the very middle of the explosion when it happened, and they don't exist. They were turned pretty much to dust, to ash. There are maybe 24 people who are hurt but not dead. And all they can really do is stare as this menace leaves the scene. He leaves the scenario laughing maniacally. Loud, boisterous, just cackling. New York is, with Vulture, it was very much a wild animal let loose in a civil area, and it was handled. With Mysterio, it was somebody who had been driven crazy, but couldn't do much damage outside of the one-on-one. Shocker was just a bank robber, who got some heavy firepower, but a bank robber. This guy's insane. This guy is crazy, this guy is not there. They don't know what to do. Spider-Man shows up, and he very, 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 very quickly goes home. He finds Aunt May, squeezes her. He finds Harry, squeezes him, freaks out that Gwen's not there. She's with Captain Stacy. She's okay. He calls. He figures out that they're alright. And then Gwen asks a line that to everybody else doesn't really smack. Her and Harry understand it, but a lot of people don't. Where were you? Because they don't know where Peter was. And this is the first time Spider-Man's been gone for a thing like this. Typically he's been there. Typically he's been able to handle it. He's been able to stop it. He's been able to at least nullify some of the damage. But he wasn't. Peter, where were you? And Peter pauses. And he tries to explain where he was and what he was doing. But it doesn't fix the situation. It doesn't set things up. It doesn't fix the question, because they're right. It's his responsibility to be there. It's his responsibility to be there and stop that sort of thing. He doesn't know what he could have done, but he knows that he should have done something. And for really the first time in this series, Peter Parker has failed, but Spider-Man hasn't. And this is the first time that there's a moment of Peter not knowing if he's being responsible. Because he's just assumed when he puts on the suit and he tries that he's being responsible, that he's doing the right thing, that he's doing enough. And for the first time, he doesn't know for sure. He rushes out, and he starts looking around the town. He goes to the building where the explosion happened, where the cops are very promptly like, hey, no, until Captain Stacy very reluctantly allows Spider-Man in, because he has reason to trust him, as do a few of the other officers, who lower their handguns and don't do anything crazy. Peter apologizes for being gone, thanks them for allowing him to help, and expresses how grateful he is for what they can do. Peter finds a piece of one of these pumpkin bombs, and he's staring at it, and he's making sure that nobody touches it, because he doesn't know what the fuck it is or what it will do. We don't know if it has any sort of countermeasure to being taken, so he very softly picks it up. He doesn't grab it, he just taps it and lets it lift via him being sticky. He stares at it and he looks at it, and then he politely asks if anybody has a magnifying glass. A couple cops laugh at him, but then he's like, no, does anyone have a magnifying glass? A cop that is behind Captain Stacy very politely brings over a magnifying glass that Peter takes, and he looks, and he gets close and close and close and close, And right there on the middle, Oscorp is all it says. He grabs the other 3 pieces with his fingies, brings them over, and awaits for somebody to have like a bag, and then he lets go of them, they go in, and then he expresses, be careful, we don't know what those do, because typically when a bomb explodes and like fragments of it go away, they're not in like that shit. Basically the goblins pumpkin bombs are like a bunch of like hexagons, and when it explodes, instead of them exploding and becoming tiny pieces, the little hexagons individually go away. And we'll figure out why in a bit. But he's very much like, hey, be careful, don't drop those, be very careful with them, don't put them in the back seat and drive, careful. And they are. And then we end that scene and we go to Oscorp, where we see Norman in his living room in the like top of the building, and he is staring at himself. He's almost confused, because he knows what happened. He saw the goblin do stuff, but he doesn't experience it one-to-one. He doesn't experience it in first person. He's more so watching it happen. And Norman stares at himself, stares at his hands, as his claws slowly become normal fingers. He looks at his arms as they slowly go back to their normal length. He looks down as he goes closer to the ground. He knows he's this character. He knows he's this guy. He knows he's this villain. And for just a second, he thinks about turning himself in and explaining it. But then he doesn't. He doesn't do that. He looks at his hands. He smiles. And then his door opens and Harry comes in. And Harry is fucking going crazy. He runs, he hugs his dad, squeezes him. Norman puts an arm around Harry, expresses that he's okay. Harry asks, where have you been? Norman pauses for a second. Just a moment. Norman expresses that he didn't mean to scare anybody. He didn't mean to cause any problems. He was just studying. Studying for a special test. A test that Harry wouldn't understand. At least not yet. And that's about all he gives for an explanation. And it's not the greatest explanation. Harry isn't happy with what he just heard. But he's not going to push at his dad. He knows better. His dad's a good man. His dad's a charitable man. His dad is a man who spends all of his time doing these positive things and helping the world. But Harry's not dumb. He knows his dad has a temper. His dad has a second character in there. He's not just the super good guy. He's a super good guy who could put his foot down. He's not a bad man. He's not abusive. He's not rude. He's just very, very forward. Very, very forward. The scene is almost over as Harry looks down and sees a vial on the ground. He sees an empty vial. He's very confused as to what it is, and he picks it up. His dad very promptly takes it back from him and says, hey, don't touch experiments on your own. You know better. Harry expresses that he didn't know it was an experiment, because typically the experiments here at Oscorp have a name on them. This vial has nothing. Norman stares at it and he goes, must have been a printing issue. And then he smiles at his son, and the scene comes to an end as Harry hugs him again, and Norman is staring past Harry at the wall, and there's a photo. It's Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Harry, Norman, and Peter. He just stares at Peter. On this photo, he just stares. And the smile slowly wears away. Scene ends. We then get Peter climbing Oscorp for the second time now, and he very politely comes in. He looks at Norman, and he says, A, good thing you're back. Don't like when people go missing in my city. B, what do you know about the Goblin? And Norman takes this as Peter knowing. He takes this as a threat. And he gets in Spider-Man's face. He starts raising his voice. And Spider-Man explains, oh, no, nothing like that. It's not accusatory. It's just like he had bombs. The shrapnel said Oscorp. Have you been robbed recently? Have any of your stations been robbed? Has anything gone missing? And Norman calms right back down, back to being calm and collected, apologizes for his outburst, and expresses that they haven't experienced any recently. The last time we experienced anything like that was Mysterio. Peter knows Mysterio isn't around because he's dead. And he like sort of palms his face for a sec, stares, gets a sigh out, and then he apologizes to Norman. He says, sorry for interrupting, sorry for intervening, sorry for making you think that you're being accused, you haven't done anything wrong, and sorry if I interrupted that. And he is pointing at Harry and Norman. Norman says it's okay. Norman apologizes for his outburst again, and then he politely asks Spider-Man to leave so that he can hug his son one last time. He hugs his son, takes his hands off of him, tells him thank you for being the good man that you are, and then he politely asks Harry to leave the room. Harry begrudgingly does. He goes outside, but he doesn't want to. He's worried about his dad. He's worried about that experiment, and he doesn't know what to do. But he leaves. He follows what he was told to do and doesn't try to cause any more problems. Spider-Man has already left the building. Harry knows it was Peter, but as far as Peter and Harry know, Norman has no clue. Norman has a couple clues. So, the next day we get a scene where Spider-Man is swinging through the city, and then he's just kind of on a swing. He's talking to himself again like normal, but this time it seems like he's not talking to himself. It seems like he's talking to another person that we just can't see. He apologizes. He tells them thank you. He expresses his gratitude. He explains who and what he is and what he wants to be. He expresses how he's lost. And then towards the end of the scene, we see him stop swinging. We see him go to a cemetery and finish his conversation with Uncle Ben. He expresses sorrow. He expresses his guilt and his lack of understanding of why things like this happen to him. When he gets to the cemetery, he kind of drops the whole Spider-Man thing and goes to being Peter. There's nobody around, so while he changes, it's not that insane. Nobody sees him. But he's here, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's verbalizing that he doesn't know what to do for the first time. He's verbalizing a lot of his feelings for the first time, and it's the first time we've really seen him deal with the guilt of Uncle Ben's death. It's the first time we've had him do that. And he stares at his hand, he stares at his wrists, and he asks if he still needs to be Spider-Man. Then, before he can finish this sorrowful, deep conversation with himself, his spider senses go crazy, and he dives over a certain someone called the Goblin, who dashes at him in his glider. And then we get a little bit of a back and forth, but not a whole lot, because Peter can't fight as Peter Parker, and he can't swing away. He has to pretend he's normal during this fight, because Norman knows. The Goblin knows, but Peter doesn't know that. He's not aware that that information's already been revealed. So, he does what he can to get away from the Goblin without showing off too much. He dives, he ducks, he yells, and the Goblin's teasing him. Teases him, taunts him, explains that he's going to crush him like a bug. calls him Bug Boy, calls him Bug Boy, calls him Bug Boy, and then towards the end, Peter thinks he's getting away, he's about to go swing, and then he gets up into the air behind this building, and he thinks that he's going to get away, until the goblin just grabs him and slams him into a building and holds him there. He holds a pumpkin bomb in his hand, and he just holds it there, right by Peter's head. And he says, "You saw the news." And he just taunts, rubbing the bomb against Peter's head. He says, "I know who you are. And as long as you play along, no one else gets hurt." The goblin very slowly backs away from Peter. Peter asks what the goblin wants, and the goblin is very straightforward. He says, "You're going to make me a star." It's very confusing. Peter doesn't understand why the goblin would want any of that, or what he means entirely. And Goblin then explains, "You are going to stop me. And then when you beat me, you're going to turn around. And I'm going to beat you. And I'm going to make Oscorp look perfect. This glider will be state-of-the-art. It'll be the best in the world. And you're going to make it look better." He holds a pumpkin bomb. He says, "We saw what these could do. You don't want me to use more, do you?" Peter says no. Goblin puts it into his glider, and he stares. And he says, "You're going to make this stuff look good. And then I'm going to disappear. And Oscorp will make a whole lot of money. A whole lot." Understood. Peter very much is not happy with this, but he nods his head yes. He shuts his mouth. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do anything. He stops and he waits. The goblin leaves. Peter runs home. He doesn't swing. He doesn't climb. Sprints. Because he isn't... He's like scared. He's not thinking straight. He gets home and he cries. He cries and he cries and he cries. He cries about Uncle Ben. He cries about this whole situation. And then he gets a phone call from Gwen, and he starts crying again. Because he realizes that he's been back in New York for 3 days, and he hasn't said a word to her. He talked to her when he first got back, because she asked him where he'd been, and now he's been gone again. Peter's lost. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then on the flip side, we see Harry, who's figuring out stuff, who's smart. He's realizing where he is and what he wants to do, and he's realizing what he's good at. And he's good at putting two and two together. He's good at figuring stuff out, and he's the first to realize that the goblin and his dad are one and the same. He calls Peter, who doesn't respond. He goes to May's house. Peter's not there. Harry's figured it out, but he can't relay the information to the only person who can do anything about it, because Peter is dissociating. He's hiding. And he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't get to figure it out because he won't listen. He just won't. Then we get this big scene of the goblin talking to the city. He's on the top of a really tall building. He's looking down on people. He's got all these bombs ready. And he's just cackling. Just cackling and cackling and cackling as he threatens everybody. Spider-Man shows up, and he follows the plan. He beats up the goblin. He stands tall. He expresses that he will take care of everybody. And then he does nothing as the goblin starts beating the shit out of him. Goblin punches him, kicks him, cuts him, throws him, shoots at him, does all this damage, and Peter just doesn't do anything. There's helicopters staring. There's cameras staring. Everybody's seeing Spider-Man get his ass slammed in. But Peter's not trying to do anything. He's letting it happen. And in these moments, he's getting glimpses. He's getting these moments of figuring some stuff out for himself, where he's getting hit, and then while he's like discombobulated, he's thinking back, and we get to see Uncle Ben for the first time. We get to see Peter and Ben talking. We get to hear Ben say the line, "With great power comes great responsibility," and it's the only time we get to hear him say it. He says it in this scene where Peter's getting his ass beat. We get to see 3 frames of Ben. We get to see, we hear him say it, but we don't see him say it. We get to see him on the ground with a bullet wound. We get to see him smiling with May and Peter, and then we get to see his tombstone. We don't get to see him, we don't get to see him in action, we just get to hear him say that, and we get to see these 3 frames as Peter is getting his shit pushed in. And it hits with him again how important responsibility is, how important accountability is, and how this, what he's doing right now, this idea of allowing this monster to do this, isn't responsible. He's not being accountable, he's not being a good guy. And he starts fighting back. He starts fighting back against the goblin. He discombobulates him, takes him away from his glider, takes him away from his bombs, and beats the shit out of him until the goblin says, "No more, Mr. Nice Guy." Ah ha ha ha. Pumpkin bomb. Right there on him. And he, right there on this building, Peter's on top of him. Bomb. Peter's suit gets charred, his skin gets fucked, but he's okay, he heals really quickly. Peter goes flying. Peter just goes fucking zooming. And the goblin is presumed dead, because, yeah, ow, top of this building explodes. Peter tries to fix it. He stops as much of the rubble from falling as he possibly can via webs. And then he has to leave before the press can get there because his suit is pretty much gone. He goes home, and he kind of falls into himself. He looks up. He says, "Thank you," to Ben. And then we see him realize he needs to do something. Realize that the old suit isn't going to work. So he makes himself a new suit. Mostly, all he really does is make the same suit with a couple white accents, which will be important later. He adds these white accents. He adds accents between the fingers. Just a little bit of white. He adds white to his boots. He adds a little bit of white around his emblem. He adds just bits of white. Not infinite, just little bits. Which will matter later. We then see him calling Gwen. He apologizes for everything. He's upside down in some random alley, and he's talking, and he's sorry. He expresses everything he wants. He expresses everything he needs. He expresses how important she is. And she's not responding to him. She's saying yes. She's saying okay. She's saying I understand. But she's not being very reactive. She's not expressing much. And because of this, Peter's confused. He asks what's up. And then she says nothing. And then we hear maniacal laughter in the background. The goblin is there. Gwen's not at home. She's not at school. She's not at Maze. Peter would know that part. She's not at Oscorp. Or she's not at Oscorp in a good way. She is on the top of the Oscorp building. She is tied up, and the goblin starts to threaten her. He knows who Peter is, but Peter doesn't know the other way around. He can hurt Peter, but he can't have Peter retort because he doesn't know that Norman's the goblin. And he says, "You gotta make my stuff look good. And if I have to force you to sell it, I will." Except for he says it way grosser than that, because I'm not a good voice actor. Anyways, Peter is very quickly going to change his plan and go to Oscorp. He gets to Oscorp, and he very, 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 very quickly goes to the top. He zooms up the wall. He's just going and going and going. He gets up there. He busts into the top floor. Nobody's there. He goes onto the roof, and he sees Gwen dangling, tied up in spider webs, almost as a way of forcing Peter to blame himself for all of this. She's there and she's hanging and she's scared. And then Peter doesn't know what to do. His spider senses are freaking out, but he can't tell from where. He doesn't know from what direction, and that's because there's stuff in every sort of direction. The goblin tackles at him, he moves. The glider comes flying past him, he moves. There's a goblin bomb beneath him, he stares at it. He jumps up, it explodes the layer beneath him. There is now about 100 stories of just straight down beneath him from where this bomb just exploded. Peter doesn't like that, and he sticks to a wall. There are 50 casualties in this scenario. People that were working late. A couple scientists, a lot of janitors, and just a whole lot of damage. The building's barely standing, but Peter can't do anything about it yet because he's fighting the goblin. Goblin flies at him on the glider, shooting green beams at him. Peter moves, he dodges, he tries to kick Goblin off the glider, but he just doesn't. The Goblin's feet are now stuck on this glider for now. He's basically using a very small, like very, very, very tiny amount of vibranium to keep his, ankles locked to it. Lord. Sorry, I'm dying. One moment. In this action scene, we get a lot of Peter trying to improv. We get a lot of innovative fighting from him, because it's not just punching the goblin. The goblin doesn't react to pain. I mean, that bomb went off right by his ear, and he has no scars. Nothing. He goes flying in this fight. He bounces off walls, he slingshots, he does everything he can, but nothing seems to do anything. Nothing seems to make him react, which is scary in a fight, because if they're not reacting, it makes you think you're not doing anything. And Norman's body is not super. Bones are being broken, skin is being slashed, there's so much damage happening, but he's just kind of not reacting to it, is the thing. It's almost like a super adrenaline. The goblin slows down ever so slightly. Not like enough to stop any of the issues, but ever so slightly, and it gives Peter an idea to wear him out. Just wear him out. You slow down, wear him out. After a bit, Peter gets a phone call from Harry, and he says, "Not a good time, bud. I'm busy." And then Harry explains, "This will be a good time, actually. That's my dad." And then Peter is flabbergasted. Goblin grabs him, slams him into the wall, and starts screaming at him. Screaming, "It's your fault. It's your fault your uncle's gone. It's your fault she's gonna die." And then he just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. It is until he pushes too many buttons on Peter. And Peter gets this little fit, this little rage, this little adrenaline boost. We get to see this side of Peter we haven't really we got a glimpse of, but we haven't seen. Typically we see Peter in a fight, and he is innovative, he's smart. But in this scene, instead of being smart, instead of being able to plan everything, he's just hitting. And he's not holding back. He's just hitting. Peter is just laying into the goblin with everything he's got. And we could tell it's working. The goblin's teeth are breaking. He's getting cuts on his face. So much damage is happening. Because Peter's not dealing with it. He's punching, he's kicking, he's putting chokeholds in and throwing. He's doing everything he can. A pumpkin bomb comes flying at him. He grabs it, slings it back at Norman. Very much a reference to Spider-Man 3. And the bomb goes under Norman. Because he, dodges it. And it hits the wall. Peter goes, okay. And then just grabs Norman, slamming him into the wall. Hits, boom. And Peter's not thinking. He's not using his brain. He's not thinking about his surroundings. He's just attacking. This is animalistic Spider-Man. And he's just hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. Slams him into the bomb. boom, that part of the wall flies back. He's not paying attention. The webs that Gwen is stuck on slowly start to break. Peter is not very happy with this and starts screaming. He beats on Norman, and then he hits him so hard. He, hits him just so hard that, even with all of these power boosts, he passes out. The glider's still going, but he's not awake. We see him zooming around until he hits the line of webbing that Gwen is currently stuck to, and she goes flying down. Peter notices, and we get the scene. Peter dives, going down as fast and as perfect as he can, whips a web to her, web up top, ting ting. Music gets really tense. Peter begins crying. He goes down. He looks at her. He screams as he holds her. And she blinks. She's okay. Peter takes her not in the building, and he sits her down, and he goes back into the building, and he is very, 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 very not happy with himself, but also with the goblin. He goes up, and he starts beating the shit out of the goblin. Punching, kicking, choking. He starts ripping pieces of the glider away. And then it comes down to just an all-out fist fight. No rules, just bang, 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 bang. Both men are battered. Both men are hurt. Both men are just breaking down. And then Norman, very, 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 very slightly gets smaller. He gets slower. He starts losing these things until he runs. He tries to get away, and Peter's gonna go chase after him until he hears Gwen screaming. He looks over, and there are 2 pumpkin bombs with her. Fuck. Peter dives down, grabs one, throwing it as far away as he can. It explodes in the air. He turns, and the one that he didn't grab first, the bomb explodes. And Gwen is sent flying. She's not gone. She's not dead. But she's fucking hurt. She flies 50 yards, just hitting the ground. She didn't take the initial explosion as there was a bunch of rubble beside her. But she's fucking hurt. She's hurt. And she's not awake. She's alive, but not conscious. Peter goes back as he hears this laughing. He knows it's Goblin, and he gets up there, and he gets up there, and he gets up there. And the Goblin has now injected himself 4 separate times with the serum, and we expect this to be the moment. Goblin's going to overpower Peter. We're going to get this big monster. And we do get the big monster. Goblin becomes really big. He gets really Hulk size. He's huge. And Peter one-punches him. Peter is not fucking happy. Peter is not holding back. And Peter is not going to deal with this. He thwips him, pulls him in, and just fucking... one hit. Goblin is knocked out cold. And then we very quickly see the cops figure him out. And they're like, well, shit, what do we do about this? And that's when we're introduced to S.H.I.E.L.D. And specifically, one Nick Fury. Fury shows up, tells Spider-Man that he's done a good job, and he says that we'll be taking the monster from here. Peter is like, excuse you? Who are you people? And then Nick explains everything. He says, he explains a bunch of stuff that he's done. I made this, I did this, I did this. Peter doesn't know what any of them are because they're secrets. Fucking S.H.I.E.L.D's not an open thing. And then he goes, I made the Avengers, and Peter clicks who he is. in this world, the Avengers are gone. And that's why I'm not using them, is because they existed in the 90s and the early 2000s, and they're all fucking dead. They're all gone, except for the Hulk. But the other Avengers are fucking dead. That's why they don't show up. That's why they're not in this world. That's why we can't pawn the villains off on the Avengers. If Peter's gone, they're all fucking dead. Whereas Hulk, different planet. So he's gone. Fury expresses his gratitude that somebody came along and could deal with this, because he doesn't think anybody else on the planet could have. He thanks Peter. He expresses his gratitude, shakes his hand, and says, hopefully, we never see each other again. And then he leaves with Goblin. Harry gets a government-informed explanation that his father is in, what's it called? Oh no, what is it? What's it called? Oh no. Witness protection. His dad's in a witness protection thing. Which is technically accurate. Technically accurate. Fury also expresses that he is impressed with Harry's ability to figure out the mystery and all that, and he would like to give him a job opportunity. We will not hear in this film if Harry takes that. We just know that it is an opportunity for Harry. Peter rushes to Gwen. She's on a stretcher. Captain Stacy is holding her hand. She's not awake. Spider-Man leaves, and then in the hospital, Peter shows up. Peter, Harry, Captain Stacy, and Aunt May. They sit, and they're all listening as the doctor comes in and expresses that she's in a coma, and that there's a chance that she will never wake up. Everybody is distraught. Everyone's sad. And then Captain Stacy, his sadness and his trauma in this loss changes into anger. He slowly gets pissed. He looks out the window and he starts screaming. Aunt May, knowing it's not her place to intervene, walks out. Harry walks out. Peter puts his hand on Captain Stacy's back as Captain Stacy expresses that this is all Spider-Man's fault. If Spider-Man had any sort of brain, he could have stopped that guy. He hit him one time while he was amped up, and it took him out. He could have done that a week ago. I'm losing my daughter, and it's Spider-Man's fault. Peter doesn't like hearing this, and he tries to express that it was the Goblin, not Spider-Man, to which Captain Stacy expresses, okay, when 9/11 happened, did we change things to make sure that didn't happen again? Did we fix stuff? Yeah. Spider-Man dealt with these guys already. He dealt with one that blows stuff up. He dealt with one that was a big monster. He hasn't changed anything. He hasn't adapted to fix it the way that he should have. He evades the law. He doesn't push it. He doesn't protect it. And now the law's coming for him. Peter is very not happy to hear that, because yeah, he wouldn't be. And then we get two scenes before the ending. We get Peter falling into Aunt May. His head is against her stomach. He's just crying. And we don't get words. She just rests her hand on his head as he fucking sobs. He doesn't know what to do. He just cries. He just cries. He just cries. He just cries. And then our final scene of this film is Spider-Man swinging. He's swinging through the city. He's just swinging around as he talks to himself about responsibility. talks to himself about accountability, talks to himself about what it means to be a hero, and how much he has to sacrifice personally to do the right thing. And how much he has to lose and how much he has to lack to be a good person. He swings through the city and he stops on a building. Red and blue lights go off. We see him sigh and then swing away. And that's when we get our credits. First credit scene, we have Nick Fury walking up to a cell, see him cross his arms, and ask the man inside of it, why? Just why by itself. Not a whole lot of dialogue, just the word why. And then we see Norman with a very devilish smirk. No green skin, no mutations, just a devilish smirk. And then it ends. We don't get a reasoning, we don't hear what he's planning, we don't know what's going on. That's where it ends. That's our ending point. And then our next final credit scene, we see a man fighting a tiger. He takes it to the ground. He doesn't hurt it, he just takes it down, gives it medicine, gets off of it, pets it, walks away. Then we see the same man grabbing a tablet, staring at it, and then he lets one half of his face smile as the other stays normal. And then he stares into the camera as we get a very spooky theme, which will matter later. And that is our introduction to Kraven the Hunter. And that's the end. That's the end of this trilogy. That's the end of this film. That is the end of this period. That is the end of this part of Peter's life. It's the end of his high school. It's the end of his relationship with Gwen. And it's the end of what he grew up with. His old father figure died so that he could learn responsibility, and then his new father figure died so that he could learn accountability. And Peter's lost. He doesn't know what to do, and maybe we'll figure out what he does next time. But for now, that is the end of the high school trilogy for Peter Parker. That is the end of this first Spider-Man trilogy, and that was Spider-Man Same Stitch. If you have any comments, story, whether it has something to do with an idea for the future, or if you just want to say, like, oh, that was really dog shit, or oh, that was really cool, comment section down below. Check out the previous parts they'll be on screen, because it's the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for your time, for your support, for your efforts. Thank you so much for your likes and your comments. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.